What's up, guys? As promised in my last video, I want to go over some of the things that helped me to get through raising these angelfish fry. So tip number one, when raising angelfish fry, you want to start small. This is a 29-gallon tank right here. However, I started out with a 10-gallon tank. I moved the eggs over from my community tank, which you can see in my last video, to the 10-gallon tank all on their own. I didn't bring the parents, and I raised them. Starting there. You want a small tank because the angelfish are extremely small when they start, about the size of a mustard seed. It would be really hard in terms of feeding and cleaning and just managing all the fish if you started out with too big of a tank. So I suggest start small, somewhere around 5 or 10, and then upgrade to around about a 30-gallon tank or more, because depending on how large you plan to keep the fish, that would dictate how large of a tank you would need. Number two, don't use a filter. In the beginning, I actually ran a filter, and my first batch of eggs that had hatched, they all died because I used a filter with that sponge you see right there. I had that sponge on top of the filter intake. And the sponge works great now because all the fish are much larger. However, in the past, when they had just hatched, they were so small that they could get sucked up through the sponge and into the filter. Sadly, it took the life of over 100 baby angelfish. So, learn from my mistake. Don't use a filter up until they're around over a month old. In the meantime, you want to use a sponge filter, which you can see 2 of them here. I picked these up after my horrible mistake, and they're really cheap. You can get them for like $5 or $10 off Amazon. There's no moving mechanical parts, and they provide good environment for bacteria to grow on. Tip number 4 is having a stable heater. This is really important. You need to have your temperature not fluctuating, because angelfish fry, or any fry for that matter, are very sensitive to changes in your water parameters and the temperature. So I picked out one of these cheap Tetra submersible heaters that maintains the temperature at 78 degrees Fahrenheit. And I like this because I never have to worry about what it's set as, or I don't have to keep checking it to say, oh, is it too hot, too cold, too hot, too cold? Because I know it's always setting it at the exact same temperature, and it has. It's worked perfectly. It's cheap. This is only, I think, $11 off Amazon, and it works perfectly for what I need. Tip number 5, don't use a substrate. As you should know if you've been researching how to raise fry, you don't want to use a substrate. If you ever wondered why, for cleaning and maintenance, you're going to have to clean your tank a lot. That involves vacuuming off the poop on the bottom, any excess food. You're going to want to keep this tank as clean as possible. Also, you don't want a substrate because when you feed them, the food's going to sink to the bottom of the tank, and it's going to rest on the bottom until the fry are hungry and are ready to eat. Fry will not eat flakes floating at the top of the tank, and they probably won't eat anything falling in the middle of the water. So if you had substrate, it would create an environment for the food to sink down and hide, and the fish will never be able to get to it. So until they're old enough to where they can eat flakes resting on top of the water, I would not use a substrate. Tip number 6, lighting is not that big of a deal. Unless you're using super high power lighting that is, blinding the fish, lighting does not matter. Some people worry about what type of lighting is best for fry. It's not that big of a deal, just not anything too harsh. I found out that my fry don't really like a light on. They tend to hide in the shadows for a while, for about the first hour or two as I have the light on. And I can always tell that they prefer having the light off. So usually throughout the day when I'm gone, I leave it off, but then if I'm around the room and I want to see them, I turn it back on. Tip number 7, what should you feed them? Most people will always say to feed them baby brine shrimp. However, I don't have the time to hatch them every day. I don't have the time to basically raise more animals. So what I did is I used, at first, Hikari First Bites, which is not the best choice. I picked it up from Petco. It was like $2.50. Really cheap, really basic, just basically like a powder form of food. It worked. They would eat it. However, I don't think it was the best. So I switched to this, which is decapsulated brine shrimp eggs. I bought this off Amazon for around $15. I believe this is a quarter pound. and my fish love it. They will chase this right as I pour it into the tank. I feed them with a turkey baster, and they love it. I also will mix in crushed flakes to try to transition them into adult food slowly. But for sure, they love the decapsulated brine shrimp eggs. And I've also definitely noticed a difference in their growth ever since I transitioned from the Hikari first bites over to these brine shrimp eggs. Usually you want to feed angelfish fry around 3 to 4 times a day, because you want to give them a lot of small meals. And so I feed them once when I wake up, twice throughout the day, and once before I go to bed. They will eat a lot, but you want to make sure that you're not overfeeding them. So if you see a lot of food accumulating on the bottom, you want to make sure that you hold back on your feedings and vacuum that up as soon as possible. Tip number 8, the most important, is water changes. You're going to have to do water changes about every other day. The more water changes you do, the more survival rate of your fish you will have. I understand that not everyone's going to have time to do one every day, every other day, or so on. I probably did mine every other day or every third day, just because I'm in college and I don't have the time to do that all the time, plus it's just a pain. However, like I said, it will increase your survival rate. It'll keep the parameters in check, and the fish will like it as well. So those are my main tips for what helped me raise these angelfish fry. I'll probably be selling these to my local fish store. They said that they buy them for about a third of what they'll sell them for, so you can make a decent profit. And it all depends on how many that you have. So if this was helpful, leave a like. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll be uploading more fish tank videos in the future.